Time for a good conversation. I'm in retirement. I'm 75, almost 76 years old. And in retirement, I have noticed a lot of things. I've observed a lot of things. And what I'm going to do right now is share a few thoughts with you about being in retirement. And that glow is that my computer just came on over here. So here I am, John Hauser. My YouTube channel is Free Advice from 76 Years and the Grumpy Old Toad. Talked to my brother today, and he said, grumpy old man. But I want to tell you that I have observed quite a few things in my retirement. So we've got retirement, we've got being retired, we have retirement planning, and then we have observance or being observant in retirement. And I think that people who are retired should be paying attention to current situations in the United States and overseas. It's a great opportunity. As retirees, we generally have the extra time, but let's just talk about a few things. One of the things that's on my mind is Great Britain, England, the British. I met a guy a few years back, had that heavy accent, and I said, where are you from? He goes, I'm English. I always thought that was funny. What has happened in England? England has been given over to the Muslims. The mayor of every major city in England is now a Muslim. The Muslims are now calling for the banning of dogs. They're also calling for the banning of Christianity. The Muslims are taking over Great Britain and England very quickly. The Prime Minister of England appears to have no courage at all, and he appears to have no backbone. And the king, what of the king? The king is supposed to be guardian of the faith, king of the realm and guardian of the faith. He has no sense of the faith, no sense at all. Now, of late, people in England have come forward from the Church of England, and now they're trying to take a stand. Now that they have women priests and pastors and LGBTQ, whatever they are, people working in their churches over there, now they're coming forth, and now they're trying to take a stand. It's a little late. Liberalism and socialism has ruined probably one of the greatest countries that ever lived. Oh, Britannia. Britannia once ruled the waves, and now they don't even have hardly a navy or a military to speak of. And what about Germany and France? Germany wants us to remove all of our military from Germany. And France, they just go ahead and surrender and ask questions later. What is it with these people? What is it with these people? They claim that NATO is as strong as ever. Are they forgetting that the United States is NATO, and that most of what happens in NATO is done by the United States of America? In 1974, I was in the Azores. And the reason why I was in the Azores is I was a crew chief on F-4E fighter bombers. We were flying NATO operations. We were flying under the NATO flag, but it was us. It was the airmen and the pilots of the United States Air Force. In 1974, I also went to Norway. And in Norway, once again, we were flying against the Russians. In 1974, the Russians were misbehaving, and so we went on a NATO operation, and the only ones there in the NATO operation was the United States Air Force and F-4Es. Now, yes, in Norway, they did have some F-104 starfighters, but they really didn't compare to the famous F-4E that would fly against the Russians. So NATO is us. And if we get out of Europe, and if we get out of Great Britain, and we get out of France and Germany, they better get ready, because they don't have a military right now. But we do. Now, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about the way this war is going. And again, I'm saying that in retirement, we need to be observing what's happening. I myself am a Vietnam veteran. I have the pictures hanging on the wall back there that show when I was a crew chief on an A-37B, not to be confused with the T-37. They were two completely different planes. The A-37B was a low-altitude fighter bomber. The A stood for attack, and the B stood for bomber. So first it would attack you, and then it would bomb you. It was the predecessor to the A-10. From 1971 to 1972, I was in South Vietnam, and here's what I can tell you about the present war with Iran. If the President of the United States had taken the same aggressive stance that our current president is taking right now, the Vietnam War would not have gone on for years. It would have gone on for months. And when President Nixon said he would end the war, he sent the B-52s in to bomb North Vietnam and to take out Haiphong Harbor, and the North Vietnamese immediately said, that's it, we're done, we give up. And so what did we do? We pulled out. And we all know what happened in Saigon in 1975 when we pulled out. That was not the way to handle it. As of today's date, which is April the 2nd, 2026, I completely agree with what the president has ordered to have happen in Iran. The Iranians will be totally without any military when this is over. They will not be able to attack or harass anyone. They'll never get nuclear weapons. But here's the thing. We might end up with a couple of months, maybe 3 months, a short time involved in this war. Whereas in Vietnam, we were there for years. And the French were there before us, and the Australians. Those Indochina wars went on for years. But while we were there, it went on for years. And to this day, I believe that the Vietnam War went on as long as it did because politicians were making money off of that war. In 1972, I was a member of the 8th SOS, the Special Operations Squadron. Certain generals decided to fly into Cambodia with our jets, the A-37Bs. They had found that the North Vietnamese had massed in Cambodia, and they knew they had to go to Cambodia and take them out and wipe them out before they came over and wiped us out. And that's what they did. It was an unauthorized mission. The decision was made by some generals to get it done, not by Congress. A war cannot be fought by politicians. A war must be fought by people who know how to fight a war. And I will say that currently President Trump is doing a great job. This war is going to be over soon. He will have reached some objectives. We should have been fighting Iran a long time ago. I have friends who were in the military, and most Americans forget this. We had a military base. We had military installations in Iran before the revolution. My friend and his family barely got out of Iran when the revolution was taking place. He was in the Air Force. They had to leave most of their personal possessions and their car, which they had shipped to Iran. They didn't get to ship it back. They just did get out in time. So, you may put your comments below, and I hope that you'll like and subscribe. But I'm expressing what is my opinion. And my opinion is this war is being fought properly. Go in there from the air and take out everything they have. Ground troops only if absolutely necessary. I don't think it's going to be necessary, but it might. But whatever happens, this is the proper way to fight a war. If you get into a fight with somebody, you want to fight it hard, and you want to win, and you want to win quickly. And that's what we're currently doing. So I support President Trump, I support Pete Hedgepeth, and I support our military, all of them. I was in the Air Force for 7 years, and I know what it's like to work on fighters and bombers, and I know what the potential was. Now, I was in the military from the late 60s to 1976, and the equipment that we had then was considered primitive compared to what we have now. But even with what we had then in the 60s and 70s, we still had the firepower to get the job done. But the politicians wouldn't let us do the job. And now, as an observer, as someone who has observed the Vietnam War and has observed other wars since then, this one is being done correctly. Wipe the enemy out, get it over with. That's what Patton wanted to do after World War II. Patton said, let's go in and take care of the Russians while we're here, but they wouldn't let him do it. Speaking of the Russians, I personally believe that Vladimir Putin's days are numbered. His economy has collapsed. Their money has become virtually worthless. They have unemployment figures of 40 to 50%. They have killed millions of their own people in this war. They have lost something like 10,000 tanks and pieces of equipment. They went into this battle completely unprepared. They were getting flat tires on their trucks and their military equipment. Their jet fighters turned out to be not so good. Their military turned out not to be so good. It was a huge paper tiger being run by a madman who was sitting around watching World War II movies thinking he was going to bring back the glory of the Soviet Union. And now Putin has lost his country. No one has seen him in days. He's gone. Where is he? Nobody seems to know. In 1953, Joseph Stalin died of very mysterious means, and they quickly had his funeral. It could happen over there. It could actually be that Ukraine may actually win this war. And I think it's very possible. But I think that Vladimir Putin, his days are about over. And that's a good thing. Maybe, when this is over, maybe Russia can pull itself together and go back to being a great country. They were on a great path when Putin decided to go to war. Their economy was good. The people were making money. They were enjoying life. And Vladimir Putin decided that he wanted to go to war before he was too old. That was the same decision that Adolf Hitler made. Adolf Hitler decided to go to war before he was too old. And I think that's what Putin did. Now, how do I know these things? I've simply been making observations. You have to get away from American mainstream news media to discover these things. And you can do that on YouTube. There are several great sources on YouTube. You can search them out and find them. And like Dr. Jason J. Smart from the Ukraine, and you can learn these things. And I think that even though we are retired, and even though we're in our 70s and beyond, we still need to know what is going on in the world today. We still need to know that. And I know a lot of people say you're not supposed to take a hard stance on anything when you're on YouTube. Well, I can't help it. These are my beliefs. I believe in this book. I believe in our country. I believe in our current president. I do believe these things. And speaking of our president, our country as it is, in South Carolina, the Muslims are trying to take over. In the state of North Carolina, the governor of North Carolina, Josh Stein, just gave away the whole state and said we should all, he said, he commends, not commands, but commends that everyone in the state of North Carolina should observe Ramadan, which is the Muslim holiday. And I say that's a bunch of BS. It is. We don't need the Muslims. We don't want the Muslims. We don't want Sharia law. We don't want their book, the Quran, which I've read large portions of the Quran, and it's a lot of nonsense. What it does to women, what it does to people, it's just bad news. It's not good stuff. It's not what this country was made out of. It's not what this country was made for. And it's not a religion. The Muslim religion is not a religion. It's a rule of law. It's a type of law. And anybody that will study the history of Muhammad and how he got started, I happen to have on my shelf The Complete Works of George Washington Irving. And he wrote one of the earliest bios on Muhammad, and it's quite shocking when you read it. And if you just flip through parts of the Quran, part of that is just, it's blasphemous, it's wrong, it's immoral, it's backwards, it's medieval, it's in the dark ages. It needs to go away. Just look at what has happened in Detroit. Look what's happened in Milwaukee, Minnesota. Look at what's happening in New York City. It's dumb. What is wrong with our politicians? Why do our politicians not see it? Now let's go back to Great Britain. Their current prime minister, his name is Starmer. That guy is an idiot. I don't know how he got in office. They need to get rid of him. If Churchill was here today, Churchill would get that guy out of here. I've read many of Churchill's books. And if Churchill knew what was happening in his Great Britain now, compared to what happened then, and now these people in England say they want the Americans out. They don't want us to use their bases. They don't support us. But in World War II, Churchill was continuously asking the United States for help. And the United States went and helped them. We did it because a lot of our ancestors came there. Our ancestors are mostly Northern Europeans. So what's wrong with these people? Don't they get it? But if they don't want us there, we shouldn't be there. Let Germany and France pull their own weight, and they probably won't. And then the next threat that comes along, they're going to be in bad shape. So anyhow, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm thinking out loud. And I'm thinking about some of these things that conversations need to be held on these things. Conversations need to be done. Conversations need to be talked about. And again, I'm retired. I'm in retirement. I'm 75 going on 76. I have read a lot of books over the years. A lot of books. And I would say that it's time that people our age pay attention. Let's talk about the next election. If you vote for a Democrat, you're making a mistake. I don't care if he's a great politician, if he's a great humanitarian. If he's in the Democratic Party, don't vote for him. Because the Democratic Party is not the Democratic Party of John F. Kennedy. When I was growing up, John F. Kennedy was considered to be a hero. But now, the Democratic Party is full of socialists, is full of the LGBTQ people, is full of liberals, is full of people that hate the United States, and we've got nationalized people in Congress now that should not be there. So if you're going to vote for a conservative candidate that believes in this country and believes in the rule of law and believes in freedom. That's what we need to vote for. Good conservative people. Now, I would say vote for good Christian people, but that doesn't always work in politics because a lot of times people don't understand how you can work politics and scripture together, but it can be done. Ronald Reagan did it. I like Ronald Reagan. I like Donald Trump. Unlike a lot of Trump's critics, I have read many of his books. Donald Trump has written several books, and I have read several of those, including Art of the Deal. And I personally think that Trump is doing a great job. Trump, his life was spared for a reason when he took that bullet. In the Old Testament, there was a ruler, his name was Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar was a great ruler, but throughout the Old Testament, God said, Nebuchadnezzar is my servant. Notice this, God said, Nebuchadnezzar is my servant. And Nebuchadnezzar was a very proud man, very powerful man. But God struck him down. Because of his pride, God struck him down. And for 7 years, he was not the king. But when the 7 years was up and he regained his sanity, he went back to being a king, and Nebuchadnezzar praised God and gave God the glory. God had a purpose for Nebuchadnezzar. I personally think it's just me talking. I have no Bible verses to back it up. But I personally think in God's providence that God spared Donald Trump for a reason. It's so obvious if you'll just think about it. He was spared for a reason. It's kind of like in the Old Testament, Joseph said, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." So I'm just kind of rambling tonight, but I'm expressing myself and telling you what I think. And this video is going to be kind of long, but I had a lot on my heart tonight I wanted to say. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is social media. I've heard a lot in the news recently about social media. And I think that the problem with social media is not the child. It's not the social media. It's not the computer sitting next to me. It's not the iPhone I'm talking into. The problem with social media is parental controls. Yep, I said it. The responsibility of social media is not up to Facebook or Google or YouTube or TikTok or any of the others. The control over those outlets is to be by the parents. The parents must be in charge. Don't give a preteen or a teenager an iPhone or a smartphone because they can turn it on and completely access everything that's in the world. If you want to give them a cell phone, give them a cell phone. But they don't need to have access to all of this media when they should be in school reading about, see Dick run, see Jane run. The 3 R's. What is it? Reading, writing, arithmetic. They don't need that stuff. They don't need the social media. They need the education. That's what I'm trying to say. They need the reading, writing, and arithmetic. They don't need to be sitting there looking at their phones doing social media while they're in school, while they're at home. I personally know of a young man that had access to a computer while his parents were at work, and sure enough, he got into the wrong stuff. He was watching the wrong stuff on the internet, and it messed him up. These things have got to be controlled by the parents. You wouldn't give a preteen a loaded gun. Well, you might in right circumstances if, the proper training. But letting a preteen or a teen have access to social media may be more dangerous than having a loaded gun. Now, for all these people that want to walk around with blue hair, and they got nose rings, and they got cheek rings, and they got ear rings, and they got all these little pieces of metal all over their body, and their whole bodies have been tattooed up. That's mental illness. That's mental illness. Up until 1985, the medical community considered these things to be mental illness. When a person would cross-dress and they would conduct themselves in the, let's just say it like it is, homosexuals, they're considered mentally ill. Getting these tattoos all over their body was considered a form of mental illness. Getting all these piercings because they think they're enhancing their looks, that's just mental illness. It's not right. These people need help. And these people should not be in charge of anything. I went into the grocery store recently, and this woman had this weird thing sticking out of her lip. It went in and around her lip and had these 2 big steel balls on it. And I was like, I had to ask her. I couldn't help myself. I said, ma'am, what happened to your lip? And she goes, oh, it's a lip ring. Our teenagers and our preteens need reading, writing, and arithmetic. They don't need social media. When I was growing up back in the 50s and 60s, and even in the 70s when I was in the military, social media was you met someone and you sat down and you had a conversation. That was it. Or you went out and rode your bikes together and you had a conversation. Or you played softball, basketball. Or you worked on a farm and you talked to the farm hands. Or you worked in a gas station and you talked to the customers. It wasn't all this stuff on the phone. Now, I actually believe that social media can be used for good. I believe that. I believe social media can be used for good. But I think right now it's being abused, and the fault of the abuse doesn't rest on the children. It doesn't rest on the providers. It rests fully upon the parents. The parents are responsible for their children getting the wrong social media, and it's very, very easy to fix. All you have to do is say, no, that's enough. Remove the iPhones and simply give them a cell phone if they must have one. Just plain old flip phone. I actually have a friend who has not given his children, even though one of the teenagers has not given them an iPhone or a smartphone. And they have very limited access to the family computer. Very limited access. And you know what? Those are two of the nicest children you'd ever want to meet. Their brains haven't got all messed up and the mush hasn't got all entangled because of all this nonsense that they run into. So, I think people need to look at things differently. And I believe those of us who are retired should tell our story. And we should tell about the standards that we've seen in life. And, of course, the standards are in the original book. They really are. They're in the original book. I wasn't even a Christian when I was growing up, but we were taught the Ten Commandments when I was growing up. I wasn't even a Christian, didn't even go to church, but as children we knew the Ten Commandments. When I was in high school, we knew who the apostles were, and I went to a secular school. So it's time for some change in our country. Keep these things in mind. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. If you have any comments, put them in the section below. And I'm trying to build my YouTube channel. Again, thanks for watching. This is John Hauser with my YouTube channel, which is called Free Advice from 76 Years and a Grumpy Old Toad.